Hey dear students, now let us feel and experience something because we are going to study about the epithelial tissue which is present in a whole body. It is one of the abundant tissues which is mostly present in the air sacs of the lung, the kidney tubules, in the linings of the kidney tubules, even in the lining of the intestine, in the lining of the esophagus, and even the respiratory tract. There are various other regions like the lining of the blood vessels, lining of the mouth, skin. There are various regions where the epithelial tissue is mostly present. So from here we can easily understand the epithelial tissue is kind of a protective tissue of the human body, which covers many organs and cavities that are present inside the body. Like in this figure, we can easily visualize like this pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium. This is a type of epithelium which we're going to study in detail afterwards. So in the respiratory tract, in the lining of the respiratory tract, the epithelial tissue is present. Now, what function the epithelial tissue is going to perform? So, as the cells of the epithelial tissue are present in the lining of the respiratory tract, in the respiratory tract there is exchange of gases between the blood and the lungs. So, the oxygen is being absorbed by the blood through this epithelial tissue. Okay, students? Similarly, if we consider the esophagus, in the esophagus, the conduction of the food takes place. So, this epithelial tissue, that is a stratified squamous epithelium tissue, which is present in the lining of the esophagus, is helping the conduction of the food towards the stomach. Okay, this is the region from where the food is being conducted to the stomach, and there are various other functions also. I'm just highlighting the few functions in front of you. We're going to study in detail about it. Don't worry about that. So now, students, even in the intestine, the food which is being absorbed and digested goes to the intestine. In the intestine, the nutrients from the food is being absorbed by the intestinal walls, because the epithelium tissue, simple columnar epithelial tissue, is present in the linings of the intestine. Okay, and it absorbs the nutrients and various kinds of food, digested food, to form the blood in the intestine, and it is have a column-like shape because this intestine requires a much more of protection from any kind of infection. So to protect the intestine from any kind of infection, the epithelial tissue is present. As I told you, the epithelial tissue is a protective tissue also. Even it is present in the kidney tubules. From the kidney tubules, we know that there is purification of blood and the various liquids in the body. So the urine is being transferred from the urinary bladder, the kidney tubules, to the ureter, and from there it is being thrown out. Okay, in this way, the simple cuboidal epithelium is meant for this purpose, for the purpose of excretion. Even in the air sacs of the lungs, the oxygen is being absorbed by the blood through the alveoli of lungs. So these all different processes are being performed with the help of this very important and very special tissue that is named the epithelial tissue. So you should remember that where are these actually the epithelial tissue present? Mostly in every lining of the different parts, different organs of the body, the epithelial tissue is present. And specifically, if we consider the skin is one of the epithelial tissue. The skin is made up of the epithelial tissue, or the lining of the epithelial tissue, or the cells of the epithelial tissue, because the skin gives a maximum protection to our body, and it helps to protect the underlying tissues also. Like the various organs are being protected because of the skin also. So this is the epithelial tissue, which has the main function of protection. Now, students, let us understand what are the features of epithelial tissue. Now in the figure you can easily see these are the cells of epithelial tissue, which contain a nucleus, bluish color nucleus. And can you see any intercellular spaces? There are no intercellular spaces between these cells. Okay, so it is a continuous lining of cells without any intercellular spaces. This is the first feature of epithelial tissue. Now, where it is placed, where are these cells placed? These cells are placed above a very delicate non-cellular membrane that separates them from the underlying connective tissue. Below this basement membrane there is a connective tissue, and this delicate non-cellular basement membrane is where the epithelial tissue are being placed. You can see in this figure, इसके ऊपर रखे हुए हैं basement membrane के ऊपर, और उसके नीचे क्या है, connective tissue है इस basement membrane के नीचे. Okay, so you can see in this figure it is easily marked here. Now, अब एपिथेलियल टिश्यू का कैसा नेचर है, वो लाइनिंग्स में रहते हैं और उनके वो क्या है, थोड़े से परमेबल हैं नेचर में, एंड प्ले एन इंपॉर्टेंट रोल इन एक्सचेंज ऑफ गैसेज एंड सब्सटेंसेस। इससे क्या होता है, गैसेज और सब्सटेंसेस की एक्सचेंज आसानी से हो सकता है इन सेल्स के, एपिथेलियल टिश्यू के सेल्स के थ्रू। तभी हम देखते हैं स्किन में से, फ्रॉम द स्किन द स्वेट कम्स आउट, वेरियस ऑयल्स कम आउट फ्रॉम अ स्किन, बिकॉज द परमेबल नेचर ऑफ द एपिथेलियल cells, it is possible for the various exchange of gases and various substances from inside the body and towards the outside. And the blood vessels are absent in the epithelial tissues, but the nerve endings, as you can see in the figure, these nerves endings are trying to penetrate inside the cells of the epithelial tissue. This is the basic structure of the epithelial tissue. It lies above the basement membrane. It has a basement membrane and delicate down cellular basement membrane, above which the epithelial tissue is lying, its cell is lying, and below that is connective tissue. Connective tissue के ऊपर होता है। इससे हम समझ सकते हैं कि अंडरलाइंग टिश्यूज को प्रोटेक्ट करने में भी epithelial tissue काम आता है। Now students, there are some functions of the epithelial tissue which we should understand. As I told you and explained you, it is the main function of the epithelial tissue is protection. It can be skin, which protects underlying tissues from drying, injury, and any kind of chemical effects. And the tissues in the buccal cavity जो हमारे माउथ में होता है, reproductive tract में, alimentary canal में, nasal tract में, इसको भी इन्फेक्शन से प्रोटेक्ट करता है। कैसे करता है हम डिटेल में समझेंगे डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ एपिथेलियल टिश्यू के द्वारा। नेसल ट्रैक्ट में सीलियास होते हैं जो वेस्ट पार्टिकल्स को नोज के पीछे होते हैं, डू नॉट अलाउ द वेरियस डस्ट पार्टिकल्स और एक्स्ट्रा पार्टिकल्स टू एंटर इनसाइड आवर थ्रोट और टुवर्ड आवर ट्यूब, बॉडी ट्यूब। एंड absorption कैसे होता है, एपिथेलियल टिश्यूज लाइंस द स्मॉल इंटेस्टाइन एंड डाइजेस्टिव ट्रैक्ट, जहाँ से वाटर मिनरल्स का अब्जॉर्प्शन होता है इसके द्वारा। सिमिलरली एक्सक्रीशन, it is in the uriniferous tubules which are present in the kidneys. The epithelial tissue has the elimination of waste also, and even the secretion, because the epithelial tissue is present in various glands. So in the various glands like the endocrine glands which are directly hormones bloods में transfer कर दिए जाते हैं, and similarly the hormones, enzymes in saliva, mucus, and like from salivary glands, from mucus glands, from sweat glands, all these different types of secretions are possible because of the epithelial cells and epithelial tissue. Now even the sensation is also experienced by the epithelial tissue. The sensory receptors which are present in the senses like nose, eyes, ears, taste bud, transmit the signals from the epithelial tissue to the neurons. The neurons transmit the signal to the brain. So in this way the brain directs the various organs to perform their different functions and act accordingly. Now students, in this way we understand the basic idea of epithelial tissue, and in next class we are going to study about the different types of epithelial tissues. Okay students, thank you very much, please watch it attentively, and you are very sweet and soft, you are very dedicated, you are very determined, so I want to know what you learned today and what are the main functions of epithelial tissue in your comment box. Okay, thank you students.